Previously on a Scowl Method podcast. When I was chasing all of my barbell PRs, like my barbell back squat, barbell bench press, barbell deadlift, I had a 4-week cycle in all of those, a 4-week offset training cycle in all of those programs. Because that I believe really helped me get to my PRs in all of those areas. So it's really, really good for that strength. And again, it just comes down to training the proper movements. It comes down to building that core stability, and it also can add to your strength in general, right? If you have no equipment at all, blood flow restriction training could be a win for you in terms of gaining muscle, it wouldn't necessarily be the best in terms of strength or anything like that, but it was, put up some show muscles. So you basically would for instance, you would wrap, if you were just doing you have no equipment and you just have the bands, wrap the bands around your arms, do some push-ups. And if you have, and again, you have no equipment at all, wrap the bands around your legs, do air squats, and do that every day. And do it till really do it till it burns, because it's supposed to burn. You're filling up your bloodstream with all those metabolites and you're keeping them there. So it's supposed to burn a little bit. And there's something that I realized about goals. Goals are they're good, but they're not everything. And I know that sounds confusing because I'm telling you to set goals, right? I'm saying what made me productive, or what makes me productive now, is that I set goals, but I understand that that's just a target and that no outcome is ever guaranteed. So sometimes you have to be aware enough to know when to pivot. You have to be aware enough to know when to let it go. What's up, y'all? All right, welcome to another episode of the Scowl Method podcast, and let me just kind of go over a couple ideas that I discussed in a previous episode, specifically about mechanical tension, right? So, one of the, most talked about points or most watched points of the previous episode when I was talking about blood flow restriction training, one of the highlights, was dealing with mechanical tension. So it's basically saying that, hey, you could do blood flow restriction training to still gain lean muscle tissue when mechanical tension can't happen for you, right? So where it's not present. So in that episode, I explained that mechanical tension is basically like if you can't put up the weight, the heavy weights or something like that, or moderately heavy weight, you can't apply but so much mechanical tension. And I wanted to kind of clear it up a little bit, just a little bit more. You could still apply mechanical tension with light weights. It would just take a while. So that's how blood flow restriction training kind of works as well, where it's beyond the metabolite accumulation. Your muscles get fatigued, and as you get fatigued, light weights are going to seem pretty heavy to you, right? So that's still also mechanical tension as well. So I just wanted to kind of hopefully clear up that it's a more of a nuanced topic. But if you can't get to mechanical tension by way of heavy weights, then blood flow restriction training is pretty decent for you. That's basically what I'm saying. And look, the holidays are right around the corner. I think so by the time this episode drops, tomorrow will be Thanksgiving, American Thanksgiving. I'm looking forward to it. Listen, I'll tell you what, I typically enjoy Thanksgiving more than most of the other holidays, to be honest with you, just because you get to eat a whole bunch of food, and well, unless you're really on some type of program or something like that. But for me personally, I get to throw down. I mean, I love the stuffing. I love the macaroni and cheese. Listen, there's this thing like, oh man, whenever my mom makes macaroni and cheese though, that stuff, I don't even know what's in it. It's probably crack cocaine that's in it. That stuff is so good and addicting. I wouldn't be surprised Look, let me not. So I'm pretty sure there's not crack cocaine in my mom's macaroni and cheese, but you know. So anyway, I wanted to. So I'm also kind of toying with this idea, and we're just rapping right now. So I'll put it out there. I'm not absolutely sure I'm going to go this route yet, but I'm toying with the idea of jumping back in another group of bodybuilding shows, right? So I have to make the decision soon because this technically would be an off season, so I would try and put on as much lean muscle as possible between now, the end of the year, maybe the beginning of February, March, probably February, before I have to start to cut. So I have to make a decision pretty soon. I'm not going to add in large amount of lean muscle tissue in December, January, in 2 months, but well, at least not naturally, right? So, and that's the mode and the method which I'm operating here, right? Like I don't plan on taking any steroids or anything like that. That's not my jam. I wanted to see where my body could go in its natural state, right? Like how far can I push muscle growth in my body? Can I reach my genetic potential? How far can I push strength? So this is one of those things where it's just like I'm probably going to stay 100% natural, and I just want to see where we could go. So I'm toying with that idea. Well, I don't know if I'm actually going to do it or not. I'm probably just going to work out like I am because it's a great motivational tool that I tend to use at least once a year. So we're on to episode 13. Episode 13 is called Sick Nasty Pumps. Okay, so we're going to talk about, for the quick tip, we're going to talk about a way of thinking concerning your fitness, right? So starting off doing workouts that you enjoy and then doing the exact opposite, right? Then we're going to go into ways to improve blood flow, right? So last episode, we talked about blood flow restriction and using that as a training tool. Now I'm going into the ideas and why you might want to consider improving your circulation, increasing your blood flow. There's a whole bunch of studies, literature that's behind all of this stuff. So we're going to dig into that a little bit more. And for the random topic, we're going to discuss. So this is a two-parter, right? And I didn't really know it was a two-parter until I actually started talking about it. But there's this idea of how do you lead? How do you rule? How do you reign in a sense, right? So I go back and forth between this idea of punishment versus incentivizing when it comes to behavioral change, right? So for this episode, we're going to talk about using punishment as a way to produce better behavioral outcomes. All right. And that's just a mouthful of saying, so, what's the idea behind punishment? Is it all bad? Is it all negative? And we'll dig into it from there. What's going on, everybody? Hope you're doing well out there. Listen, I'm Coach Evan. This is Say Cheese in the Studio, and you're listening to the Scowl Method Podcast, your one-stop shop for not only physical fitness, but mental fitness, emotional fitness, and spiritual fitness. All right, let's get this one going. Do workouts that you enjoy, then don't. All right, so when you're first starting out your fitness journey, it will help you immensely and increase your chances of success if you do something that you actually enjoy. So, for instance, if you enjoy doing yoga, then go do yoga. If it's CrossFit, go do CrossFit. If you enjoy working with a suspension trainer and that's all you want to do, go do that, right? even if it's bodybuilding, powerlifting, whatever. If it's more athletic training, you participate in recreational sports, whatever it may be. Whatever it is at that point, do that, right? Especially when you're just starting out. Because what happens is that's actually a better indicator if you're going to reach. It's a better indication of if you reach success with any particular program than it actually shows more than motivation does, right? So motivation will get you started, but it doesn't have staying power. If you're doing something that you actually enjoy, that actually is a better indicator of whether you're going to reach the end of that particular program. And so that's why I say starting off, do something that you enjoy, even if it's just jogging. All right, you enjoy jogging? All right, cool. Go do jogging. Okay. So there are a few benefits to doing this, right? To starting off doing workouts that you actually enjoy. Most important one is it's easier to remain consistent with something that you like to do. I mean, think about it, right? Like we already know this, right? You're more likely to treat something as and build up a habit around something that you enjoy as opposed to not, right? So if you have something that you don't enjoy, it becomes a chore, and that significantly decreases your chances of continuing on with it. So just for consistency's sake, start off doing something that you enjoy. Another benefit is, and it just kind of goes back to a previous episode where I told adults to go out and play, right? If you're doing something that you enjoy and these workouts, you're enjoying them, that actually is the same thing as going out and playing, right? And I went over all the benefits. Go back to the episode, listen to it, right? But I went over all the benefits of play for adults. There's cognitive benefits, mental benefits, emotional benefits, actual physical benefits. Like it benefits you greatly. So think about starting a fitness program where you're already trying to improve your actual physical health markers, right? But now you're getting a mental boost out of it as well and an emotional boost out of it. That, again, we're talking about like quadruples your chances of success here, reaching whatever that goal is that you're trying to reach, or at least getting close to it, right? Now, while it's good to start off this way, it is great to start off doing those things that you enjoy. Eventually, you're going to have to switch it up. Okay, now hang with me on this one, because there are benefits to switching it up as well. So doing some of those things, and I don't mean make the entirety of your workouts something that you just do not like to do. Sprinkle it in there a little bit. Okay, now here's why. Our bodies are highly adaptable. So the more you do something, in essence, the lazier your body is going to become, kind of, sort of, right? Your body is always looking for the path of least resistance in doing anything, in existing, right? So if let's just take, you do a lot of CrossFit. That's your jam. That's what you're sticking with. And that's perfectly fine. That's what you enjoy. So you're in a CrossFit program, or you're part of a nice CrossFit gym, whatever it may be, and you do it for 3 years straight, and you're just like, man, I love this stuff so much. I would almost say you're increasing because your body gets used to these types of movements. So you have to add different flavors to it still while doing CrossFit. But I would even say go outside of CrossFit at that point and find something else. And it might not be as enjoyable, but sprinkle it in there so that your body continues to adapt or grow and change, so it provides a different stimulus to your body for it to do something different. In a lot of cases, that also is preventative in terms of injuries, right? So a lot of injuries that I see nowadays are mainly overuse injuries. You're doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. Your body wears out, right? So you have to provide a different stimulus at times, right? It doesn't have to be the entirety of your program. So you could still ideally do CrossFit, but maybe add in a different day or switch out a different day of doing something completely different. Maybe something more for mobility. Maybe something more, I don't know, go do yoga, I guess, right? In fact, actually, well, it's funny. I've seen so many different yoga injuries. And it's like, yeah, I do this every day. And I'm like, that's fine. What else do you do? Is there any other form of resistance training and is there anything else in the mix? No, I just do yoga. And the number one thing I see is people with messed up shoulders, messed up hamstrings, messed up hips. And it's just like, I thought yoga was supposed to prevent that. And it does in a lot of different cases. The problem is you're just doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. So these are overuse injuries, and I've seen quite a few dealing with, and it's just, I mean, that part might just be a little anecdotal, right? But I see a lot of that, in the yoga world. Now, all you yoga cats don't come at my neck. I'm just saying, okay? I'm just saying. That's what I've experienced. That's what I've seen. And another benefit to doing some of these workouts and doing some of these things that you don't like is because, well, primarily because you don't do it, there's room to grow in that area, most likely, right? But it goes back to another previous episode that I was talking about when I mentioned strategic discomfort, right? This is a prime example of strategic discomfort, that you would basically get uncomfortable on purpose so that you can grow and be better, right? This is a perfect example of that, where you're used to bodybuilding. That's all you do is bodybuilding. I'll never forget. I'll never forget, but I forgot this guy's name, right? That made sense. There's bodybuilders. They've done some crazy things outside of just lifting weights, right? I mean, there were bodybuilders who did ballet. There were bodybuilders who did rec sports. Right? There's bodybuilders that crossed over into powerlifting, and you would think that's the same thing. It's not. it's not. So there's always those things that they kind of branch off into to continue the growth process. And that doesn't mean they stop their bodybuilding. They just have a few extra skills and a few extra tools in a toolbox to use for when they come back to bodybuilding. Right? So it benefits you greatly to change it up. To do things, though, specifically that you don't enjoy. Don't make it the entirety of your program, though. But it definitely does. It's that whole idea, again, of strategic discomfort, right? So it's just as simple as starting off doing the stuff you really, really like doing. Do it for a program or two. Switch it up and sprinkle in some other things just to keep you sharp, just to keep you growing, and to make sure that you're not running the risk of injury because of overuse. There's a lot of mental benefits concerning that as well, right? It's like, it's why I cold plunge, right? I don't like it. I still don't like it. And I'm still not that much better at it. But I get there, I do it. It's the mental side. It's the mental stuff that's just like, okay, I don't want to do this, but I'm doing this. I don't like this, but I'm doing it. And once I do it, I'm like, I did that. Cool. All right, we're good. Let's move on, right? There's value in that. There's a lot of value in that. Don't discount that, okay? All right, awesome. Let's talk about sick, nasty pumps, or just ways to increase blood flow, right? So in the last episode, I spoke about selectively restricting blood flow as a training mechanism, right? Or blood flow restriction training, BFR, and I broke all that stuff down. And so now in this episode, I want to talk about the opposite: increasing blood flow, for everybody, which in other words is better circulation, right? But better circulation for all, even if you have good circulation, right? There's benefits in that. And there's reasons why you will want to do that, even if you have good circulation. But it's funny because the way this topic actually came up, I wasn't going to do this. But the way it came up was as soon as I posted the previous episode where it was talking about where I was talking about blood flow restriction training and I was talking about restricting blood flow, my whole social media was flooded with, like every single site was flooded with all this stuff, reels and videos and shorts and everything like that of ways to increase blood flow. So I'm just sitting there like, maybe you're trying to tell me a message, but I was just like, all the social media. Okay, it's a different topic, but just don't get me started on it. Now, so why would you want to increase your blood flow? How do you do it? Are there any supplements that help you with that? So we're going to dig into all of that stuff, all right? So let's jump in, all right? So when I say blood flow or good circulation, what do I mean exactly by that, right? So what I'm basically saying is good circulation in general, right? Blood flow in general is the ability of your blood to move through your veins, your arteries, and your capillaries freely, smoothly, and without obstruction, okay? So that's circulation. That's blood flow, all right? Now we want to... And let me just make sure that's how I'm framing. That's what I mean by blood flow or circulation, okay? There's other nuanced definitions of it and all that fun stuff. I'm not trying to get too sciencey, but I might end up anyway. We'll see, okay? But that's what I mean, right? Blood moving through your veins, arteries, and capillaries freely, smoothly, and without obstruction, okay? Now, why is having a decent blood flow or decent circulation, why is that important? Well, that's important for about like 5 reasons, right? First, oxygen delivery. Oxygen to the cells, oxygen to the muscles, oxygen to the tissues. Good circulation gets oxygen to where it needs to be, and we need that stuff, right? Beyond that, it also carries nutrients and hormones, right? That's a twofer, right? Getting nutrients where they need to be, all over the place. Getting the hormones where they need to be, all over the place, right? The third one, it removes it. That's also where your waste is carried. So all of the byproducts, for instance, let's just go over the metabolites again, right? There's a lot of byproducts that come from working out, produces the metabolites. You got to get those things out of your blood system, your bloodstream, though. So there's also a process in which the blood is cleansed and it removes waste and toxins from your body through your liver, kidneys, so on and so forth, right? White blood cells and other like immune cells are transported to sites of infection or injury. So obviously you get why that's important. So, and proper blood flow or decent circulation is also really important in maintaining your core body temperature, right? So it distributes heat to all places that it needs the heat. We need the warmth. That's good for us, right? The cold is not so great for us, right? In the sense that if you have cold, well, I'll get into that. So it basically does proper circulation, decent blood flow. That's why you would want it. Those are the 5 reasons why you would want it. Oxygen delivery, immune cell and white blood cell delivery, waste and toxin removal, nutrient and hormone delivery, and maintaining core body temperature, right? Those are the things. So obviously thinking on the opposite of that, like having poor circulation could have a substantial negative effect on your overall health and wellness, right? And that list is a very long list. If you have poor circulation or poor blood flow, the list of terrible things that could go wrong or that are likely to go wrong with you, I mean, that's longer than my honey-do list for before the holidays. So it's just like we have to be able to get decent blood flow, decent circulation. So like, I'll even go over a few of those things. I had a lot of them written out, but I was just like, okay, no, I don't need to go over the whole list. But listen to this, right? Poor circulation basically leads to potentially numbness or tingling in the hands or feet, right? Because you're not getting anything in in the smaller capillaries in your hands and feet, right? Coldness in your extremities, because remember, we're transferring heat, keeping your core body temperature up there, but it's also for your extremities as well, right? Swelling in the legs or ankles because fluid accumulates in the tissues. So a lot of stuff is not being taken away. It's just pooling there, which, oh, that's not good. That's not good. You get muscle cramps from lack of nutrients, fatigue from the lack of oxygen, dry, itchy skin because you can't get any nutrients or anything like that or any fluid to your skin, varicose veins, digestive issues, cognitive issues, erectile dysfunction. Like, the list is ridiculous, right? And there's about like 10 more. I'm not going to go over every single one of these, but it's just like, this list is basically worse than one of those, that side effect list on a prescription commercial. Like, it's like, oh, listen, you're also going to get blindness in your right eye, which I think is possible. And he's like, and then death. So like, this list is bad. Poor circulation, not good for you. So we want to look at ways to increase your circulation and to increase your blood flow, no matter where you stand, no matter where you are on your fitness journey, no matter where you are in life, right? This could have some pretty decent benefits for you. Even if like you have decent blood flow, but you're an athlete, oh man, there's so many benefits on that end as well, right? And we're going to get into it. So you have an idea, right? An idea of what decent, just average circulation does for you. You have an idea, a little bit of an idea of what poor circulation does for you, right? And you probably have a better idea of what that does than the other. But now it's like, why would you want, let's just say you're completely healthy, you have decent blood flow, you're average, right? And you're fine. All your blood markers are good, everything's good. Why would you want increased blood flow, right? And there's a few reasons that I found to be the most compelling, right? So if you have an increased blood flow, that means everything is getting to where they need to get to faster, right? So let's start off with the white blood cells or the immune cells. You're fighting off infection or you're repairing injury, trauma to muscles or something like that. So the satellite cells are involved in this situation as well. And I don't know why I pointed to my legs on that one, but I think I'm just remembering leg day from a few weeks ago. Where I was toe up. I was on the floor, okay, I'm sorry, I'm getting off track. But you would want increased blood flow to speed up the recovery process in the sense that, or the healing process from infection, or to faster mobilize those cells, so the immune cells, so you'll get sick less often. All right, because they're just going through cleaning. So there's not as much time for the viruses or bacteria to replicate because they're getting taken out. Bang, bang, done, right? So that to me is a very compelling reason. You get sick less often. But let's just say you do get sick, you will recover faster, right? And so that kind of dovetails into this whole idea of the faster recovery from workouts, right? All the nutrients, all of the oxygen, everything is going to where it needs to get to faster. So it doesn't take as long to heal or recover from a workout. In fact, it actually can help you during your workout. And that's my next one. It could potentially increase or potentially improve workout performance. Because, again, we're getting all the oxygen and all the nutrients to everything, all those things. We're getting them to the muscles, we're getting them to the organs faster, so you will actually feel less fatigued during the workouts, and the recovery process is jump-started already, and the recovery process is shortened for some people quite dramatically. So it could be, so put that little caveat there, it could work for you, right? It could be shortened, but that's the idea. Faster recovery from workouts, faster recovery from sickness, sickness preventative measures are basically taken on because everything is getting to where they need to get to faster. Another cool one is because you have increased blood flow, faster blood flow, nutrients get to where they need to get to, oxygen gets to where it needs to get to, that improves cognitive function, meaning You get more blood flow to the brain, you get it faster. Well, it's you keep your focus easier. You can process and calculate and do all those things faster, better, more effectively, right? It's the same thing we talked about when going into on another previous episode. I'm probably going to say that 5 more times, but it's another thing I was talking about when going into the sauna, right? It produces these heat shock proteins and it increases blood flow to the brain, and that's why going to the sauna is really good for counteracting cognitive decline, because it just increases the base note. It increases blood flow to the brain, right? You also get increased blood flow to the skin, so it's less likely for you to have like that dry, itchy skin. Actually, you're gonna have like that kind of like that glow, like the glow. So you're just going to have better looking skin in general because you get all the nutrients, again, oxygen, nutrients to your skin, which is what's your largest organ. But that's not the point. Really, the point is you're getting additional stuff needed to look lively, right? Because, think about it, like, and I tend to look at it this way. It's a little harsh, but it's just like increased blood flow is like increased life. Decreased blood flow is like increased death or decreased life, right? So it's just like you're going to want to maintain some good circulation there, right? And you can tell, like, the movement is life, but that's another philosophical idea that, another compelling reason is that you get by way of a few things, right? So I don't want to overcomplicate it, but you get additional energy. Like you get increased energy with increased blood flow, right? And now the most compelling of all of them, of course, are the sick, nasty pumps. So now that we have all that under our belt, right, we understand what we mean by proper or good circulation or good blood flow, why it's important, and why you would want to increase it. Right? Let's talk about ways that you can increase it, and this is where it starts to get really, really interesting, right? So first, like I separated it out into groups, right? So there's level 1, that's the stuff that everybody should be doing no matter what anyway, okay? And that list basically is like it's regular exercise, right? These are the basics. This is your base level of how to increase or how to increase and or maintain proper blood flow, proper circulation, okay? Right? You want to regularly exercise, okay? You need a healthy diet that's not even just like a healthy diet, like a nutrient-dense healthy diet, okay? And with that, you also need plenty of water, okay? And from there, you also want to, and this is kind of a bunch of studies just came out, or maybe one main study, and I don't know how much it's been, checked, right? But you got to move every hour. Every hour, do some type of movement. Like excessive sitting, we already know is bad. But apparently excessive standing is also not good either. So you want to move around every hour, okay? And then you also just want to manage stress, right? Because managing stress allows you to have proper circulation, and it avoids all these other issues that can come up because of the stress. That's your base. That's level 1 type stuff right there. Everyone should be doing this, okay? Now you get to level 2, and level 2 breaks out into, so these include things that are more along the lines of like the other health stuff. So, I told you that, so that's 1, right? About 4 more times. But go to this previous episode when I talk about the other health stuff. Actually, it's 2 episodes, other health stuff, part 1 and part 2. You can actually partake in some of those things. So it's like sauna, cryotherapy, red light therapy, hyperbaric oxygen chamber, right? Do one of those 4, build up a routine around that, and that's a way for you to increase blood flow, okay? And then the second part of level 2 deals with supplementation, Okay. Now there are a variety of supplements you can take in order to increase blood flow or to get better circulation. All right. And I'm going to start with, and I'm going to just wrap them off and I'm going to explain them one by one. I have a pretty extensive list here. Right now, I'm not saying now. Well, let me give the little disclaimer. I'm not a doctor. All right. And none of these statements, I always suggest you go to your doctor and consult with them to see if this is the pathway for you, right? But I'm just giving you a little bit of information, a little bit of research so that you could take that and run with it, right? All right, so the supplementation that you can go through, right? So first supplement that you can take is L-arginine, right? It basically helps produce, and you're going to see, as an aside, you're going to see a trend here because one of the things that I really, really want to talk to you about is nitric oxide, right? But that's going to be an aside, right? And we'll get to that. I don't know how long it's going to take me, but we'll get to it, okay? So first supplement, L-arginine, right? It helps produce nitric oxide, which relaxes and dilates the blood vessels. So we're talking about vasodilation, okay? And that allows more blood to flow through bigger vessels, right? So that's a really good way to increase blood flow right up front. L-arginine, right? Next thing you know, you want vitamin E. Vitamin E simply prevents the damage. So I think it's an antioxidant, but it prevents damage to the blood vessels, right? So you want healthy blood vessels, you want flexible blood vessels, you want blood vessels that are a little bit expanded, and that's how you increase your blood flow. These supplements that I'm going to continue listing off, that's what they do, right? Next one, B vitamins. They reduce homocysteine levels and so basically homocysteine is an amino acid that damages the vessels when it's found in at high levels, okay? So basically the B vitamins kind of keep that under control, keeps everything level, all right? And iron's important because it's the main, it basically helps build up hemoglobin, the main protein in your red blood cells. That's carrying oxygen to your muscles and organs. So you see where we're going here. So iron is a decent supplement to use for increased blood flow and increased circulation. But iron is one of the ones you definitely don't want to overdo. If you don't need any additional iron, if you're not iron deficient, then you don't worry about that supplement. Okay, because that gets really, really tricky, especially for dudes when it comes to testosterone. So there's some links between higher iron levels and lower testosterone levels. I did not do all the research into that as of this moment, so I'm not going to go too far into that. But if you don't need extra iron, don't get extra iron. Okay. Then the next supplement is ginkgo biloba. I don't know why I said it like that, but it helps with the vasodilation as well, and it reduces blood thickness. So basically, it's easier so it helps with vasodilation, meaning bigger blood vessels, but it also makes your blood a little less thick, so it's easier to move through those vessels, arteries, and capillaries, right? And it is also an antioxidant, so it protects from damage as well, protects your blood vessels from damage. You also get a little bit of cayenne pepper in here, right? Because that's another one that stimulates nitric oxide or NO production, okay? And turmeric is another one, and that's another one that increases NO production, but it also improves vessel function in general, right? Your omega-3 fatty acids, right? These improve vessel flexibility. That's cool. And it also prevents blood clots. Also cool, right? There's this one supplement called Hawthorne. It's a vasodilator and an antioxidant. So it does, the same thing as I listed before. Ginger, also a vasodilator, antioxidant. And beetroot. This is my favorite one, to be honest with you. Beetroot. It's one of the best NO boosters anywhere. It's just so it's okay. So let's that's a lot of supplements, right? And I'm not suggesting you just take all of them, right? You take the ones that you might be deficient in, start there first. So if you're iron deficient, take an iron supplement. Or if you're not getting enough of your B vitamins in general, then you should take some of the B vitamins, right? I think it's B6 and B12, right? So same thing. You can always eat with cayenne pepper, eat with more ginger and things like that. Make sure you get your omega-3s, because even just beyond improving blood vessel flexibility, they're really good for your heart in general. So get your omega-3s, right? And make sure you're getting enough of your omega-3s. And your vitamin E, same thing, right? So these are all things that are readily available to us, right? And they've already been studied, and they've already been, they have multiple studies backing them. So it would really be, a decent idea to start, maybe form some form of supplementation with these around your programs in general, right? Or just eat the foods that include this, in abundance, right? So, in fact, I actually have a friend who puts cayenne pepper on everything. Now, cayenne pepper is a little bit. I can't do the spice, too much of the spice stuff, but he likes cayenne pepper. I mean, like, and just. But that's his jam. And I'm not mad at him, because cayenne pepper is pretty good for blood circulation anyway. So it is what it is, right? So I mentioned a lot about NO boost, or nitric oxide boosting. Why would we want to boost that in the first place? So, a lot of these supplements basically are NO boosters. And specifically, like, if you're concerned with muscle gain, like I am, right? You want to kind of concern yourself with any of these, like, with a lot of these NO boosters for a few reasons, right? Because one, it boosts a whole bunch of what do I call it? Like, it boosts a whole bunch of anabolic pathways, right? So basically, it's really good for muscle growth in a roundabout way, right? So it stimulates the release of IGF-1, and we talked about that before, right? And that promotes muscle protein synthesis, right? So check that off. Muscle protein synthesis. It promotes that, right? Now it also promotes, and this is what I thought was very interesting. It promotes the release of VGF-1 or VEGF. Now, I honestly have never even heard of this before, but it's vascular endothelial growth factor, which supports the formation of new blood vessels. So there's a weird story. Well, not weird story, but a funny story with this one. Back when I first started actually doing, when I first started doing blood flow restriction training, and it was funny because I started doing that, and then coming right off of the blood flow restriction training, I started supplementing with beetroot powder, and I started using that as my pre-workout, because there was this weird thing where I would drink one of those old pre-workouts and it would get like itchy face and everything like that, and just I didn't like it, and I would do blood flow restriction training then, but then it was just like my whole arm would end up itchy, and I'm just like, okay, it's not purple, but now it's itchy, and I'm just like, so at that time I was looking for a new a new pre-workout, and I found out that I had to kind of configure something myself. So I built up my own little pre-workout and with my own little measurements and all that fun stuff. But beetroot powder was the number one ingredient for that. And I started supplementing with beetroot powder. Now, I've been doing it for years now. And I just noticed, I'm like, yeah, these veins are a little bit bigger. Like, especially this one vein that goes kind of like from my shoulder all the way on down to like my wrist. And I'm like, that's a giant vein. I'm like, and it's funny because I was like, when did, I would actually see it get bigger with each, like month or something like that, right? But I will also form newer like veins. I'm sitting there like, how am I able to see this? The thing is, I wasn't losing like a large amount of fat or anything like that. This was during like bulking season. So I wasn't losing fat. So it's like, because, when you lose fat, you're able to see a lot of the vascularity a little bit better, right? This was just vascularity on top of vascularity. And I'm just like, where did these veins come from? And why am I able to see it now? So it was a very interesting thing. Now, again, this is kind of anecdotal, but it was just something that I experienced where it's just like, oh, okay, so nitric oxide aids in the formation of newer blood vessels. And for me, just saying that, it's still kind of mind-blowing a little bit. But, I mean, that's what it does. And there's studies that show that that's what it does. So it's awesome. It's awesome. So it's like, not only do you have like bigger vessels, you just turn out to be so vascular. Like, you know, you ever hear that? The gym bros talking about you're vascular, bro. Like, that's what they mean. Bigger veins, more veins, right? Bigger arteries, more art. Like, that's so cool. That's so cool. So it helps in the formation of new blood vessels. It also increases the uptake of amino acids into the cells. You know, and there's a pathway. So that's basically how it helps. You know, it also stimulates muscle protein synthesis, and it goes about that way through that pathway as well. So, you know, we'll keep it going from there. It also helps maintain positive nitrogen balance, which is actually muscle preserving. So if you have a positive nitrogen balance, you're not breaking down muscle tissue as often, right? Because mind you, your body's going through the same process or two processes at the same time, right? It's muscle protein synthesis and then it's muscle protein breakdown, right? So in a positive nitrogen balance, you're slowing down the muscle protein breakdown. And with this NO stuff, you're also increasing muscle protein synthesis. So net, you're gaining protein and you're gaining muscle, right? So it also increases satellite cell activation. Satellite cells are the ones that go out to your muscles to repair and to form new muscle tissues. It also improves endurance and performance by way of delivering more oxygen and glucose to your muscles. Okay, and that's straightforward, right? So you're able to work out with a little bit more intensity, work out a little bit more, recover faster, all that fun stuff. Is ultimately going to be good for building lean muscle tissue. So there you have it. There you have it. That's increasing your blood flow, getting better circulation, avoiding poor circulation like it's the plague, because it kind of is, right? And see, like, so in terms of like supplementation, you know, pick and choose. I know the one that I've done for years, for a long, very, very, very long time, and it's one of the best NO boosters that I've ever seen, beetroot powder. It's so simple. And it's good for you. Beetroot powder, a little bit of beetroot powder before, like in my little pre-workout, before a workout, like, and the veins are coming out. The veins are coming out everywhere. I love it. So, again, that's what you do to improve your circulation. There are reasons to improve your circulation, even if you have good circulation, right? Go for it that way. Hopefully it helps. So let's wrap a little bit. I want to talk about the idea of if we should punish or if we should incentivize, right? And in terms of should we punish or should we incentivize to create a behavioral change, right? And so this idea kind of just popped into my head. Is really, I mean, look, this is the random section. So again, we're going random, but it was, I don't even really know why I butted those two ideas up against each other, but I was just randomly thinking. And I think, a large portion of this is like the whole election hoopla kind of filtering out of my system a little bit, right? And I was sitting there thinking, and I'll do these random thought exercises every now and again, and that's what this is. This is really stemming from a silly thought exercise, but I wondered what would I be if I had, like, what type of leader would I be if I had like presidential power? Right? Would I be a leader known for punishment, or would I be a leader known for incentivizing? And, I kind of went through the motions a little bit on that one. and I guess the specifics of what I, concluded, that they don't matter. But it's really, I wanted to dig into this idea, and it not really conflicting, because the truth of the matter is you need to be both. As a leader, to be a good leader, you need both, and you don't want them butting up against each other. But in my mind, those two ideas of punishment and incentivizing, they were butting up against each other. So, I wanted to offer a little bit of assistance, a little bit of help here for parents, for business owners, for employers, especially for policymakers, for educators, right? For all those people who are called on to lead and are responsible for shaping the behavior of a people or a person. I wanted to offer a little bit of advice or a little bit of perspective here, okay? So this is going to be a two-parter. First part, we're going to go over punishment. Punishment is a method of behavioral change that basically hands out negative consequences as a response to undesirable behavior, right? So for instance, if the undesirable behavior is you're late to your job, the punishment is you get fired, right? The undesirable behavior is you commit a crime. The punishment is you go to jail. Okay? So it's punishment is a method of behavioral change that hands out a negative consequence for an undesirable behavior. Okay? Now the thing is with that though, it works initially simply because of the fear of those consequences. Because what it does is it creates a clear connection between the undesirable behavior and the negative consequence, right? So punishment draws those two together. Thus, by creating a negative consequence for that undesirable behavior, you're hopefully at that point limiting the occurrence of that undesirable behavior. Okay, so punishment can be applied two different ways, right? The first way is by applying a negative stimulus to the undesired behavior. Okay, so you're basically applying something negative to the action, right? The other way is by taking away something desirable as a result of that action, right? So again, let's go back. You do the crime, and you did some crime. You stole something, right? The punishment here in this case would be you go to jail, right? That's the negative. You don't want to go to jail. Now you have to go to jail because you committed this crime, right? But the other way, by taking away something desirable, was like, hey, we do it with children all the time, right? Don't do this, don't do that, don't take the cookie, don't steal the cookie. You leave the cookies alone. And it's like, okay, well, then they end up taking the cookie, and then it's just like, well, you know what? You can't watch TV for the rest of the night, right? They enjoy TV, and they get big mad if you take that away. They're like, no, you can't go on your tablet tonight. Why? Because you did this, and there has to be some form of correction, some form of punishment because you did this. So it's like, those are two examples, right? So it's either by applying a negative consequence or by taking away a desirable behavior or desirable thing. And both of those are in efforts to correct or in efforts to change that undesirable behavior. So here's how punishment typically works out in terms of like, here are the effects of it, right? So when you're starting off, usually there's an immediate response. So that's usually one of quick compliance. Like, for instance, okay, let's go back to the child taking a cookie, right? And I don't know whether you agree with, spanking your children or not, whatever. That's not what I'm debating. I'm just saying, if they took the cookie and they get a smack on their hand for taking the cookie. Usually what that does is and it doesn't always work this way, but usually what it does is it enacts like specific immediate compliance. Like, oh, wait. So they know immediately that was wrong. Shouldn't have done that. Right. So it also, punishment also sets clear boundaries. Right. So it sets clear boundaries on what's acceptable behavior and what is not acceptable behavior. Right. So again, we can kind of just go back to this cookie example here. It's not acceptable for you to steal the cookie. It's not acceptable for you to take the cookie, even after I told you don't touch the cookies, leave them alone, right? That's not acceptable. So here you have to know that that's not acceptable. Immediately they know, okay, that was not a good thing. Now they can make a decision on the back end and say, I'm going to do it anyway, but that's a different subject, right? What punishment does immediately, it forces an immediate response, but then it also sets those boundaries right away. Boom. As soon as the punishment is handed out, this is what we know. This is what it is. This was not desirable. We will not accept this behavior, right? But it also reinforces the rules, not the rules, but it reinforces the notion of rules and consequence. If you do this, then that. Right? Like it pretty much reinforces that whole idea in that pathway, right? It also can lead to long-term behavioral change only if it's applied properly. Okay? That's a big one. That is a really big one there, because there's a way you ought to hand out punishment. There's a way you ought to discipline whoever it is that you're trying to help towards behavioral change. Okay. There are So there are also potential pitfalls here for using punishment using punishment as a method for behavioral change. One of them is basically it can create an environment of fear and anxiety, right? And that's what I was kind of referring to when I'm talking about, what if I had presidential power? Would I be somebody who's feared? Would I be a leader who's feared, or would I be a leader who's, that's kind of that first part right there. That's what I'm talking about. It can create an environment of fear and anxiety where everybody's afraid to make a move or do anything because they fear this consequence, or they fear this punishment. And in a lot of cases, this happens because punishment is handed out unevenly. But we'll get to that, right? So also resentment and hostility can develop not against anybody else but the punisher, right? And that's, you see that all the time with kids, right? They might not understand as much. They might not know as much, but they'll definitely get mad at their parents for telling them that they can't go out somewhere, right? Because of something, some other reason, right? Or some other thing, right? They'll get mad at the parents, but they're the ones that broke the rules. And it's just like, now, am I giving up too much tape on me? No, I'm playing. But it was just like that resentment and hostility may develop against the punisher, right? And what happens sometimes is also, and I see this a lot, is sometimes what the punishment doesn't necessarily work in the case that the person doesn't change the behavior. They just change what they do around the punisher, right? And so it's just like, going back to the kids again, it was like, okay, well, this kid got in trouble in school for doing something silly, right? For disrupting a class. And apparently this kid disrupts all of his classes, or all of her classes. The one teacher that actually is like, hey, look, you got to sit in that corner. They put them in a corner, and they're sitting there facing the corner or whatever. They're over there for that one class. So they will not disrupt that class. Then they'll go to another class and it'd be the same old thing because this teacher didn't say anything. So you run the risk sometimes of 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 not actually changing the behavior. They just won't do it around you. And parents run that risk all the time as well. Like with any form of leadership and anybody who's responsible for any form of behavioral change. I mean, I see this in the workplace a lot. I've seen it. I mean, I've been in the corporate world for about 15 years plus, actually. Oh man, I'm old. I've seen it every single year, everywhere I went. I hear about it all the time. Like it's just one of those things where it's just like, look, this manager likes this, so I'll make sure I line this up that way. I mean, this is the way I normally operate. I just won't do these certain things around them. And, for what it's worth, that's what people do. Right. So, but it also runs the risk of, so again, this is the downside of punishment here. It also runs the risk of the person who has the undesirable behavior. They run the risk of them having lower self-worth and lower self-esteem. And you have to be very mindful as a leader. You have to be very mindful of that. And so you have to step very carefully when it comes to punishment with certain people, because they will more likely say that they are the worst person on the face of this planet as opposed to changing any of the behaviors. They can't get past the mental hurdle of saying that they're terrible in order to actually be better. And I've seen that, and unfortunately, I've seen that a lot as well. And then there's also you run the risk of the person who has the undesirable behavior experience or showing aggression or defiance. They flat out just was like, nah, whatever, you get out of here, miss me with all that, right? So that's always a risk. That's always the downside of punishment, right? Because and again, you want to step very carefully, because you can actually quote unquote breed those ideas and these feelings within the person that you're trying to lead. And you want to be very careful with that. Okay. And then another downside to the punishment really comes down to it's not a real change, right? So it's kind of alluding to what I said earlier, right? It's not a real change, right? They just change when they're around a certain person, right? They're around the punisher, so they're going to be 110%. But who they really are as a person, they didn't change that behavior, right? So the question now begs to be asked, how do you use punishment as a way to change behavior? Or should you, right? And again, I'm of the mind that you should, but there's a way to do it, right? So how do you do it? Now, to fully understand, well, let me put it this way. For me to fully understand this idea of punishment and why I would use it as a leader and how I should use it as a leader, I had to go to the Bible. Surprise, surprise, right? And it's weird in a sense that, well, I'll explain. So I had to go to the Bible, and what I did was I wanted to frame what punishment is a little bit differently, right? Because I think there's a general understanding of what punishment is, and I said earlier that it's basically applying a negative consequence or taking away a desirable thing as a response to an undesirable behavior, okay? And in this instance, in the Bible, it breaks it down in a number of different ways, right? So it's one of those things where it's like the purpose of punishment, and this is the way I look at it, right? So the purpose of punishment isn't to enact vengeance, okay? The purpose of punishment is to promote growth, promote restoration, and promote justice. Now that's so I'm framing it that way. So when I'm telling you how do you properly enact punishment, we're trying to properly enact punishment for those three reasons: to promote growth, to promote restoration, and to promote justice. Okay? Now, Where do you see that in the Bible? You see that everywhere in the Bible, right? I'm going to break down exactly how, a few of the examples. There are a lot of examples, and I don't want to inundate it, with, basically the whole Bible. I'll just have it running on a screen, basically, at this point. But this is how you frame your use of punishment to affect behavior change. You're using it to promote, support justice. You're using it for restoration, and you're using it for growth of the individual or group of people. So as far as examples, so punishment was used for justice and retribution, which is kind of like, wait a minute, we're not supposed to use it for justice or retribution, at least, right? It's like, right. So if you go through, I'll just read them off. I'm not going to read the whole thing, the whole verse, but it's like Genesis 4:10-12. It's basically when punishment was handed out to Adam and Eve for committing the original sin, the numero uno, right? It could have been a lot worse, right? Let's just be real. It could have been a lot worse, but here's an instance of punishment being used for justice and retribution, right? Because somebody has to, and here's this idea also of mercy that comes into play a lot of times, especially when you talk about justice, right? They're kind of on the same plane here, right? There's like, you have justice, then you have mercy, right? But and retribution is another thing. It's like, you do this is what the consequence is. There ain't nothing we can say or do about it, right? It's also used for correction and discipline. Go to 2 Samuel 12, verses 13-14. I think that's when David basically committed adultery, had a child out of adultery, and God did some things after that. Let's put it that way. It's also, punishment is also used as a deterrent from other negative or undesirable behaviors, right? That was seen in Acts 5, verses 1-11, where you basically had people, I guess it was at the beginning of the church, and they were doing some, how do I want to put it? They were lying against the Holy Spirit, but I'm trying to figure out a way to, they were just being deceitful. They were being deceitful. And so the punishment was handed out against two people, or I guess it was two people in particular, so that everyone else can see, like, oh no, we don't want to do that, right? It's also used for repentance and restoration, right? So punishment is used for repentance and restoration in the Bible, at least, right? Just look at the story of Jonah. Jonah was punished basically for disobeying God's command, and he was swallowed up by a big fish. And he was living up in that big fish, and then he was thrown up by that big fish, and all he had to do was go to Nineveh and preach, basically, right? And at the end of it all, that's what he did, and that's what the restoration was, basically the restoration of his relationship with God, right? So then there's also punishment is a method of behavioral change, which is very interesting in this case, because I'm thinking about it, like, punishment was used to exhibit God's sovereignty, right? And just look at the book of Exodus. Like Exodus, well, not the whole book, but kind of the whole book, but specifically Exodus chapter 7 through 12 or 13, something like that. Basically, when it was all the plagues and all that stuff, it was going against Pharaoh. It was like, let my people go, right? Like this was showing God's ultimate rule and reign over his creation, over his creatures, right? It was also used as purification and sanctification. Just look at Jeremiah 29, verses 10-14. They were the children of Israel basically were held captive by Babylon, and they had to live, and they had to be there for a long time. But that was basically to sustain them, and then they had practices that they had to do, and they had to be a particular way, and that was basically sanctifying the people again, and it was seen as a punishment because they were wilding out, before that. So they also, punishment was also used to in a sense to test and strengthen faith. Look at the book of Job. And oh man, and Job, this is an aside. Just the book of Job has one of the coldest verses in the Bible. Like probably the coldest. It's my favorite verse, but it's like the coldest verse. Hold on. Let me get it. All right, so just hang with me because again, it's one of my favorite verses in here. But it's just like Job 38:1. It was like, then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge? Gird up now thy loins like a man, for I will demand of thee, and answer thou me. I'm just sitting there like, yo, and then he basically, God proceeds to say, in short, who put this thing together? Me, that's who. Like, it's so cold. It's so cold to me. Like, again, Job 38, verses 1 through 3. My favorite. So, anyway, I got a little off track there. My bad. But this is, look. This is how you frame the use of punishment. Let me go back, right? So, frame it for justice, restoration, and growth, okay? Now, how should you apply it? Now, this is key. As a leader, there's a particular way you should apply punishment because it's very easy to do it wrong. And the consequences of applying punishment in the wrong way, they're pretty far reaching, okay? So I want you to be very careful with how you handle the idea of punishment and using the tool of punishment as a behavioral change mechanism, okay? So it's like, how should you apply it? First, it should be applied fairly and consistently, right? It can't be wrong one day and right the next. Enough said on that one, right? But it should be fair. It shouldn't be, well, you committed you're going to hate me for this example. But it should be applied fairly and consistently. To me, it seems like the exact opposite of our current, criminal justice system, right? Where, or even, you don't even have to say criminal justice, just our current justice system as a whole. All of it, all the way around. Like, on one hand, we'll prosecute, we'll try and punish somebody who's committed a crime, and they're one of many people who have committed this crime, and the only reason why we're doing it is because they're our political opponent. I'm not going to go any deeper in that. But then there's also a history of punishing a people for no crime committed. So that if I wish I could dig into that, but I don't think it is necessary for me to dig into that one even more. But you can see where in a number of different instances our justice system lacks the application of punishment fairly. Okay? So if you are a leader, like I said, educator, parent, policymaker, business owner, employer, whatever it may be, and you're responsible for a people and you're trying to, get behaviors to change, you're trying to aim at more desirable behaviors for desirable outcomes, then you have to make sure that if you're going to apply punishment anyway, that is even, it's fair, right? And it's consistent, okay? So punishment also must fit the crime, right? Like you can't, go back to the cookie example. My son sits there and takes the cookie off the tray. I told him not to take the cookie. I'm not going to send him to jail, right? Because the punishment does not fit the crime. And we have also seen that happen way, way too often, right? You make a mistake on your job. no one even noticed that you made the mistake, but one person, and you're fired because of it. Why? It didn't change anything, it didn't affect anything, and you were able to correct it quickly. But yet you're still gone, bye-bye. I've seen that happen way too many times. That is not the proper application of punishment, at least in my eyes, right? So you take that, it has to, and I guess the idea, just to kind of go into it a little bit more, the idea here is that the punishment should be proportional to the undesirable behavior, right? If it's a major undesirable behavior, then there should be a major punishment. If there's an undesirable behavior that really is like, it is what it is, it's not really that big, then there shouldn't be an overblown punishment for something so small, right? But you also have to, and here's the kicker, and here's where a lot of leaders lose it. You also have to apply this punishment alongside constructive feedback. This is where everybody loses it, right? Because they just hand out the punishment. Don't do that. All right. And then they leave it there, right? But this is the pathway to actual growth. This is the pathway to actually achieving behavioral change. So you apply the punishment. Okay, let's just go back to the kid. Steal the cookie. Took the cookie. Let's just say you decided the quick punishment was a smack on the hand, right? You just don't smack on the hand and say like, smack. Don't do it. No, it's just like, hey, smack. Okay, listen, here's why I did this. I did this because this is called stealing. And I asked you not to take the cookie. Like there's a point where you have to talk step by step through what was wrong and how to make it better. That's the kicker here. That's the key. You have to apply punishment with feedback, constructive feedback, not just cussing them out and yelling at them, right? Constructive feedback. This is how they achieve growth. This is how they achieve actual desirable behavioral change. Okay? And then, last but not least, you want to combine it with incentives to promote long-term change. And that's going to take us into our next part. But for now, hopefully you have an idea of how to use punishment, what I mean by punishment, and how to use it in order to achieve these desirable outcomes and to grow the people who are under you, who are your responsibility, or who you are leading. Because remember, you never want to use punishment as a pathway for your vengeance. Now, on the next episode, we're going to get into combining punishment with what we're going to describe and talk about a little bit how you use incentives as a method of behavioral change, and then how you combine both punishment and incentives to grow your people and to promote better outcomes. Okay? So there we are, episode 13, knocked out of here. Hopefully you've I've been able to present something to you that you can take home with you, use and grow, and hopefully it benefits you. Hopefully it benefits those around you. That's ultimately why I'm doing this. That's my hope here, right? And again, stay after for a few seconds, for a few minutes, just to hang out a little bit. I got a few thoughts that are just swarming around in my head for the after show, right? So, and again, the after show is not a really big show or anything like that. It's like 1 minute. So just hang with me a little bit there. But listen, next episode, we're going to talk about the idea of incentivizing in order to affect behavioral change. We're also going to talk about, I think that's what it's going to be, we're going to start talking about my favorite back exercises now. We're going to make another run at the my favorites list, right? I'm going to just build that up for you. So we're going to talk about that a little bit, and we'll see what we have for the quick tip. I kind of play a little bit looser with that one. But anyway, I'm Coach Evan. This is Say Cheese and Lift Studio, and you just got finished listening to the Scal Method Podcast, your one-stop shop for not only just physical fitness, but mental fitness, emotional fitness, and spiritual fitness. Thank you again for joining me on this ride. So apparently money doesn't buy elections. I mean, $1 billion though? And then it's still going to debt? And then overall to get beat like you stole something? There seems to be this civil war brewing within Christianity. And that's the only way I can explain it. Seems to be some form of civil war brewing within Christianity. And it largely is because the real ones are tired of the mess, and they're becoming more and more vocal about it. Speaking of Christianity, though, you know who is celebrated as like one of the best Christians ever? One of the best Christians, outstanding individual, somebody to look up to, and come to find out, just after doing a little bit of research, this person is anything but Martin Luther King Jr.